The Uganda we want. So mu Uganda gye twagala mu lutalo luno olw'okulwanyisa obulabbayo obukenuzi nze kyempita obuvundu. Munna Uganda alina okuba nga yeenyigiramu.
Ffenna twenyigire mu lutalo.
Ate abalala tebasomye kuzimba wabula bayize okuzimba.
Uganda gye twagala okulaba ng'enguudo zonna nkole nungi, public transport nga weeri.
Kati eno gavumenti eriwo erina akabonero ka Lucifer. Buli kyotunulako mu Uganda kiriko oxygen. Either babika amawulire malungi oba mawulire mabi. Minisita teyeetaagisa kabangali budde buno zaaki.
At this time, why should somebody import furniture from outside Uganda? Let us leave NRM to be in charge for another 36 years or more.
I really want to see a Uganda that believes in the rule of law. If you have a constitution in place, follow it to the letter. Don't change laws just because you want them to favor you.
Kuba njagala omanye nti obugagga bwonna Uganda bwe yeeyagaliramu buyita waffe ku ttaka lyaffe. Naye busoga mugidibaze.
How can a referral hospital refer you to a private clinic? The Uganda we want buli muntu ateekwa okumanya nti I am a stakeholder, nkwatibwako si kwesuulirayo gwa naggamba.
Uganda oyinza okukakana nga mwe mulina bagraduates aba university nga bangi okusinga ebungereza. Mwe mufokasinga nnyo ku degree. Eri bo bafokasinga nnyo nti byensomye mbijjeemu omulimu n'enkola.
We are dreaming of a Uganda where at a young age there is such a relationship between parent and son, parent and daughter, where the daughter can say this is what I want.
Uganda gye twagala empya tesobola kubeerawo nga tewali mateeka. Amateeka agakola.
The Uganda we want. All right, welcome to the program, The Uganda we want, and this is episode 2 with Ochero'S. I've had some people calling him Pintech.
Pintech, yes.
Pintech. What does it mean?
That's interesting. Pintech is actually my middle name.
Yes.
But it's a cheeky middle name because I actually picked that name in Mwiri. I picked it in Mwiri because just as I joined Senior 1, remember there was the Liberation War. So it was a very difficult time in Uganda, very traumatic. But also unfortunately, that's the year when I also lost my mother. And I lost my mother partly because of conflicts of the war where she was not able to get sufficient medical attention. But so come the lamentations of a young student who I told you was last born but not spoiled, not rich but fairly okay from an average perspective. And so I decided to say this world is tough, life is hard.
Okay.
So it's a very negative name. And so I gave myself this name, and of course, unless these days you slot it under your name thing, you know, without much difficulty. So technically, maybe linking it to the present, maybe I need to consult my lawyers. But basically, that's how I got that name. So I basically put it down there as Pintech, and it becomes my official name in my O-level, and then of course, I continue with it.
Yeah, because nowadays you leaders, and especially you who are top leaders, you have now developed a habit of digging out the name that people don't know every time you want to come in office.
There's no circumstance I'll take many of those ones. Instead, I think I have decided to drop Pintech. The more I grew, the more I became also religiously conscious. And I got involved in public services and mentoring and leadership, positive teaching and enabling. The more it became apparent that no, I need, this name is a minus to my life.
Okay.
So although it's officially my name, I rarely use it.
Okay.
In fact, I don't use it except when I'm filling in official documentation.
Yeah, it's fine. Well, people who are viewing us, I think we were just preparing them for this second episode with you. Let's go into the real thing. You've been in UK for quite some time, and I think you've heard this phrase from those guys, first things first. They normally say that.
Yes.
First things first.
Yes.
Which Uganda do you want to see?
That is an extremely important question. When you asked me for an interview and you told me the Uganda you want, and I said, why is this program not a regular amongst the most watched? I think the Uganda we want is the Uganda I want, and it's the Uganda most Ugandans will terribly want, predominantly. But from a political perspective, the Uganda I want is basically, in a way, the Uganda I grew up in. The Uganda in which, as I said, an average boy from Nagongera walks barefoot to a local primary school, gets top grade, goes to top national school, finds themselves in university, gets a job, sits in the same class with the son of a president, and has got a possibility of becoming a president. That is an average Uganda, but that is a desirable Uganda. But a Uganda in which anybody who gets malaria does not think about where they're going to get money to basically to go for tests, but rather to go to the local basic health facility. The average Uganda I want is a Uganda in which there are no street children out in Tinda. There are no street children in Tinda, including young Karamojong girls who are 9, but also carrying 1-year-olds and pose as possibly their children. Those children coming from Karamoja, and that's a pot of gold. I don't think that's the Uganda I want. But also the Uganda I want is really not a Uganda in which an average Ugandan goes to a local health facility, but they don't know whether they're going for treatment of life or they're going for ending of life. That is not the Uganda I want, but the Uganda I want is one in which people go for medical services, medical facilities, to get treatment, because we want to protect life.
Before we go into, the health system, let's go back to the street kids, street children. How can you address that? Because they have not been on the streets yesterday or today. They have been there. How come that we are not addressing that, and what should be done? How can we address that we have kids out of streets?
I think part of that has been the death of the system, the death of morality in this country, and it's quite clearly the death of leadership. There is no circumstance under which a UPC government would operate at a national level, and you have street children in Kampala, and you have a minister for children. And you have disabled people who live with disability begging in the streets and very desperate. Traffic lights. And you've got minister for disability. These days we even have members of parliament for disability. But
they have a budget?
Indeed.
Don't forget that they have a budget.
They do.
Yeah.
But most importantly, many of these street children we're talking about, particularly from Karamoja, are from Karamoja. Mr. Museveni's wife's first job was as minister for Karamoja. What did she do there? Now, even if she's left Karamoja and moved to education, it's indeed commonsensical to say that, look, I lived and I worked in this thing, what is not working, and because as a first lady, maybe I need to bang the table and something happens. Number two, why would you talk universal primary education and these people are not going to school? It's the death of a system and absence of leadership.
Not the issue with their parents?
Parents are part, but parents are only a part. The number one parent is government, and the chief parent is the president. That is where the buck stops. You said first things first, but also those guys say the buck stops with me at the top. So really, you can't govern a country and you pretend you don't know about the drainage system, broken drainage system in Kampala. You can't have a government and you don't know about the statistics happening in hospital because you know the Minister of Health, but you're the president. No, you appoint to those people and you supervise those people and you're accountable to them. And if in any case, you're the chief budgeting officer. So I told you at a different type of episode that the number one equalizer in society is education. So provide universal education to all. But make it like UPC had projected it for 1972, but didn't happen, and 1991 and didn't happen. Make it universally free and compulsory. So meaning you enforce.
Okay.
Yes, you enforce.
What we have is free, but not compulsory.
I'm not actually sure what we have is free.
Huh?
No, what we do have is a broken bribe system. It's actually criminal education called universal primary education. You need to do your figures. Look through how much government provided as subsidies to primary schools in about one government and about two governments, in O-level and primary, because those are the only education which was not free. They were subsidized. The subsidies government gave at the time per capita today is more than the equivalent of money the government gives to schools per child. Did you know that? So think about it. So there's something criminally wrong with the system. So call it universal, free, but what will a school do with the 7,000 Uganda shillings, 8,000 Uganda shillings per child per term?
Yeah.
You know? Universal education means you're providing scholastic material, you're providing quality teaching, you're providing all the needs of the child, you're providing basic facilities in school, the child is able to do sporting and everything else. In other words, you're giving quality education for a child. That is what is universally free. If you want to call it, even if you don't make it,
if it is not of quality,
it ceases to be. And in any case, I think it's a dereliction of duty. Because as I said, the equivalent of the money that government gives per child today in the name of UPE is less than what the previous government did per child when education was not free. And yet, in the UPC government of the time, primary education was subsidized but not free. O-level education was subsidized but not free. But those were the only education which was not free. Did you know that? If you finished primary 7 and you decided to go to a vocational training institute or to a grade 2 teacher training school or a certificate in health services, it was completely free. Did you know that?
Yeah.
If you finish O-level and you decide not to go to A-level and you decide to become a grade 3 teacher, a certificate in nursing or PTC, whatever, it was completely free. Is that free today? No. Did you know, therefore, that
they are not there.
Our free educational system then started in A-level. So education from A-level up to university universally was free as part of the 1964 Educational Act and as amended. Fundamentally free. Ugandans don't know that. Now, Dr. Bote told me this at his balcony in Lusaka in 2002, that as they're preparing for universal primary education for 1972, Amin took over. But as they're preparing for it again in 1991, our development friends, partners, suggested to him that we could move it from 1991, because it was a 10-year program, move it from 1991 to 1987, that we could afford it based on the performance of our economy, which I'll tell you shortly. Obama said no. I said I refused. They said, Joe, I refused because by then we had opened what we call third world schools. I'm sure you heard about those schools.
Yeah.
So in Ochero'S 2, they quickly had opened up secondary schools in every sub-county. In fact, Nagogara go to Mahanga Province Secondary School and Nagogara National Teachers College. Paya sub-county go to a technical school and a secondary school. The idea then was that we're building capacity for these educational institutions over a 10-year period. So you say that we stuck to our 1991 because by 1991 we knew once we say education was now universally free from primary to secondary, would have enough teachers, enough classrooms, enough books, enough other scholastic materials, a capacity to pay salaries without compromising standard. This man tells me this in 2002, and I say, wow, Ochero'S of 2025, I am saying that is the Uganda I want for our children tomorrow. These guys could think about this 50 years ago. They could work on this 45 years ago. That's the Uganda I want for tomorrow. So that is where then the system breaks down. But number two, he said that at independence, we recognized from 1962, that because education was not the in thing, illiteracy was still quite high. We're a new nation. Many parents in rural Uganda would not appreciate the value of education. So we said we'll encourage them with incentives. But parents who take children to primary school education is cheaper. You sell your cotton, you sell your coffee, you sell your tea, you sell your tobacco. Then maybe you do a bit of your malwa. You're able to pay the little fees, which the government subsidizes.
Yeah.
So you finish primary school, you finish O-level. And then it says, Joe, once a child finishes O-level and passes, hey, government takes over. So you see, meaning government recognizes that higher education is much more expensive than primary education. So instead of us cushioning them in primary school, making it free, and then making it harder the other way, we did it the other way around. But the intention was that cumulatively as the economy grew, cumulatively as the nation grows, we will then be able to afford for education for all. Now, universal education is the number one equalizer in society. The Uganda I want is the Uganda in which there's 100% literacy. That literacy means, therefore, that sometimes, perhaps, even when somebody doesn't have a job, you know somebody has an idea how to live.
Yeah, when you talk about literacy, there are some statistics that are out there on public domain.
Yeah.
And one of the statistics from the president himself, he says 80% of Ugandans now can read and write. I don't see can speak or they are qualified, as you're trying to bring out. When you're saying it, something came to my mind.
Yeah.
You're not talking about that. The literacy you're talking about is not this literacy of knowing how to write and how to read, and it stops there. It seems you're saying the literacy you're talking about is that literacy where I have got the education, even if I don't have what to do right now, but anytime an opening comes in, I am able to do so. Is that also something that you think when this government was bringing this policy, they forgot to address it?
Did
they did intentionally?
Did they forget it or they have no clue?
Oh.
You think they forgot it? In my opinion, one, they have no clue. But two, in the unlikely event that they have an idea, they don't care.
Okay.
This is a regime driven by self-interest and narrow-mindedness and survival. Absolutely nothing to do with the peoples of the Republic of Uganda. Absolutely nothing to do with the future of the Republic of Uganda. And absolutely nothing to do with what happens next door. You can't be a thinking government and not think that. So yes, the 80% is mock. It's absolute mock. You know, so, yeah, so you can't pretend, so what? And then you can write a crooked name to Buruhurwa. So what? You know? No, it is education. It's education. And that is the education we're talking about. Yeah. And so that's education also of capacity. And I tell you something else. The capacity I had in primary 5 that I can remember, I think many people today in all levels would struggle with. Yeah. Because
you are capable of doing things at primary 5 back then in the 1970s
yes.
than an all level.
And I can say that without any fear or doubt or any fear of contradiction. Yeah. And it's not boasting, it's emphasizing. Why? Because that is precisely the Uganda ideally we should be having and wanting for the future. But there's something else. I am lucky by blood. My grandson is 6 and extremely clever.
6 years.
Some of these are blood. Some of these are the environment. Some of these, of course, that includes the love you offer, the enabling environment you provide for young people to maximize their capacity. And then, of course, then education, whatever else you facilitate to them. His reading capacity, and recently he read at a big audience, but it shocked me. That's why I'm bringing him. Shocked me. I was massively impressed. This boy reading a massive Bible verse and stuck to it. I know definitely that 80% of many senior fours across the country, forget about this one from 1 or 2 private schools, would fail. Now,
And they are
that is
free
not the Uganda we want.
universal education.
The Uganda in which there are few children who are privileged or have got accident of genetical birth of, capacity. My boss, but he might have taken it from his mother or grandmother. But generally, you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No. The Uganda I want is Uganda which is educated. The Uganda I want is therefore the Uganda which is healthy. The Uganda I want is one which is free. And the Uganda I want is one in which there is capacity for all. But of course, the Uganda I want is one in which massively, very urgently, there's tolerance. That Uganda is one in which an urgent leadership must emerge, in which we create possibilities for national dialogue, a national conversation, a little bit of truth-telling, maybe a bit of fist fight, but not knives. But then people
Peaceful fight.
forgive and heal. The Uganda I want is one which is a renewed Uganda beyond the mess we have today. And that must really be a genuinely new Uganda.
Talk about more of the mess that we have today, and probably that, from your perspective, will help us to get there. How? And how we, young people, and even the older people like you, can come on board.
I mean, the fact that from these
Of course, you
studios,
talked about the mess in education. Everyone has noticed that, and really it has to be addressed, because you said education is an equalizer,
Yes.
for the
It's the number one
growth-
equalizer.
number one equalizer for the growth of any
Yes.
country or development of any country.
Yes.
What's the other mess that we do have, and how can we address it?
well, beyond education, as I said, and I told you elsewhere, that beyond education, when you get quality education, you should be able to get commensurate jobs or professions or trade. If you cannot get the job in a public or a private space, you should be able to build capacity for yourself. How many local entrepreneurs are getting money from State House? But Pineti gets trillions. Pineti, Rocco, some woman in Atiak. That's the Uganda they want, not the Uganda you want
Or we want.
or we want.
Yeah.
You see. So I also told you that after your education, when you apply for a job, you should get it on the basis of your merit, not on the basis of whom you know. I have a relative whom I supported in education, but was asked for 4 million shillings to have himself shortlisted for a job. And the job that turns out, I think the pay was less than 1 million shillings per month. I have a relative whose parents sold land to get 6 million shillings in order for her, say she, to get into the government payroll as a teacher.
6 million.
She didn't get it.
And she didn't get it.
And she didn't get it.
And the land was gone.
And land is gone. That is still education. From these studios to the heart of Kampala, there used to be a bus, public service bus. From Kampala to Rakai, there used to be a bus, public service bus. From Kampala to Tororo, there used to be public service bus, but also a train. Those are dead, they're gone. From Kampala, meaning Entebbe, I could fly to Tororo in a domestic flight. The airstrip there is now a cattle grazing space.
Yeah. Few jets landing there.
Which Uganda is that? That's a criminal Uganda. So at independence and from independence, and in my lifetime, I saw these things. Some of you guys did not do, I don't know whether you boarded the train. Possibly you did not. Yeah. The Uganda we want is one which restores that and builds hope for you in the future.
Okay, I've had some of the leaders like you saying, okay, the issue with Uganda, we need an overhaul. And actually, let me quote Dr. Sarah Birete. When I was having her in that seat, she said, when you look at Uganda, we need an overhaul. Everything is gone. And you're saying we must restore. Do you see the two matching?
It can be about semantics and language. An overhaul is turning around. Restore, meaning you dump. Some of these things may need to require some rooms in Luzira. And then you restore the growth. Mine is possibly much more positive. I don't want to talk down Sarah. Sarah is a fantastic colleague and friend of mine. In terms of restoration, I'm trying to tell you that there was ever better than this. Sarah needs to say we need to crash this and start afresh.
Yeah. We need to restart.
We're not speaking...
Computer language is restart.
Yes. So I am saying restoration means, as I said, and for you most Ugandans, because most young Ugandans, and that's the shocking thing. Oh, I'm going on. I think, let me repeat this. Average young Ugandans don't know that it is possible to go to a public hospital and get free treatment. I am saying it is possible. They need to believe because it ever was. But for me, I'm saying we should be having and expecting better. Average young Ugandans, they don't know that there was once upon a time a child who could come from Nebi, go to King's College Budo, and become a top medical doctor. I know one who's a friend of mine. Average young Ugandan does not know that we need to know this thing called traffic. And then I will say traffic is progress. No. The traffic in Kampala is lack of planning. And the killing of public service transport.
There's no development.
And trade. It's no development. That's progress, not development. The average Ugandan does not know that we ever had telecommunication systems. So therefore, MTN and Airtel, I'm not giving them adverts, should not be properties of dubious guys who come to suck our profit.
Yeah,
but the primary national telecommunication should be UTL, but if not, it should be Moses Goma Telecommunications Limited, meaning you're a young indigenous guy. We've created our Silicon Valley somewhere in Mawokota, and now you're able to do these things, and the government has enabled you to be able to do that. So average young Ugandans don't know. There is this thing that an average young Ugandan doesn't know, that it's possible to walk into a minister's office. I did as a young student. That's what I'm talking about. And so for me, sometimes some of my messages, sometimes people think that I talk too much about the past. Why I draw this to you is to let you know that this has ever happened. So stop sinking yourself. But on the basis of that, I'm saying that, well, if we had trains, 50 years ago, why shouldn't we have better trains for tomorrow? So I am saying young Ugandans need to believe in better. That's my message. Young Ugandans must believe in better, and believe in better because better is possible.
It's possible. Okay, let's talk about the policies that probably the government has put in place, that mindset of making the youth live better in a better Uganda. The PDM. The PDM policy.
What is PDM?
Parish Development Model.
If there is any regime that has applied economic illiteracy in this country with massive privilege, it's NRA. There was PDM, then before that was Imyoga, there was whatever. You can count the Nyong. You list all of them and put the index in terms of their success. List them and count the amount of money that has been injected in it. I said it's criminal. The idea, you don't need to be an average economist. You don't need to be an average economist to say that the best way to kill poverty of Kiriadongo is to look for people and give them 1 million Uganda shillings to do
cash.
Cash. And perhaps come towards the other end of Nakasongolo, which is a little bit of a dry end of land, give them cash. And then ask them to begin selling omena. Or senene. And then you're changing societies. Uganda, after 60 years of independence, and a regime that has come in after 40 years, that's what you do? No. What you do, you emancipate. You inject money in education. You inject money in skilling. You create enabling environments for industry and commerce to prevail. You build banks. We built Uganda Commercial Bank. This branch sold it. The infrastructure is now being enjoyed by Stanbic. Yeah? We built the largest coffee plant in Africa, in Bugolobi, is now sunk. We need to be able to build the best coffee processing plant for tomorrow. Meaning young Ugandans need, after university, to get jobs. Young Ugandans need to be able to get quality jobs. We built housing units in Kampala. You build housing units, low-cost housing units for young graduates and young professionals to be able to afford either to buy, those who can, but ideally to rent as public service. We did that as government. That's what you do. When Kampala gets choked, you think like the UPC government thought then that we think tomorrow, and as I said, in the likely event that we form a government, one of the things that I would do is to very quickly review the Kampala plan as it is today. Planning permissions and everything else, but also including the viability of Kampala as both our capital and the commercial capital. I mean, both as a political...
In your leadership, you want to maintain Kampala as a capital?
I am telling you to review. That's what I'm trying to tell you. These are things that urgently need to be reviewed. You could review this and then find that possibly it's a viable commercial capital, but possibly not a political capital. But there are many ways in which you can do these things in a rather sensible, educated way. As part of the post-independence plan, we had the Greater Kampala Plan. The Greater Kampala Plan had the idea of the Kampala Orbital, meaning a big round road like Northern Bypass, which they've faked and broken, but surrounding the city in a big way. Yeah?
More close to Mombasa?
Yeah? No. Around Kampala first, the bigger Kampala. So maybe the Greater Kampala, so the equivalent would possibly where it is at the moment on those bases of those plans of those days, or stretch it towards Chira, but including part of the Entebbe Express Highway element. So you surround Kampala road infrastructure, link them with trains, with trams, which are basically, they don't fume, so therefore they save the environment, common sense. And so trams meaning trains that share road paths with buses and pedestrians without getting electric shock. Common sense, And so you do that, so you decongest Kampala. So I drove here on my own, and I'm going to drive from here to another program on my own, but I can see one or two of my colleagues have already gone also in one or two vehicles on their own. There has been no need. Yeah. So when I was coming onto your programs, because I also had some reading, I needed to jump on a bus. In London, I would jump on. I no longer owned a car in London when I last left because it wasn't necessary. The
transport system is just smooth.
Transport system from my entrance is a series of bus stops to the next one into my office. I do not need. In fact, that one basically merely a bus. But if I want to jump on another one to go underground, the other end of it, I jump on a train. Absolutely no need to be able to do so. One is relatively cheaper, but in many cases, as I said, do I need to bother about parking? No, that's what you do. That's what the plan we already had. Yeah. Commuter trains, actually, in UPC2, we started commuter trains to Namambe, including to Seta, these places. Really, these are things that should be going to Mukono as a matter of routine. So these things happen to Mukono as a matter of routine. Why the choke traffic on Kampala, Mombasa Road? And I talk about the other extent. These guys have killed public trains. Do you know one goods train? Did you ever see a goods train? You know, the goods train is like a big snake from here to the other end. One single train takes away tens and tens of trailers, possibly 100. Common sense. The rail system is there. UPC enhanced it. We were planning to have UPC was planning to have the first electric trains on the African continent. I think, yes, supposedly last in South Africa, as projected for 1989 or thereabout. Projections. These guys have been there for 40 years. It's dead. You know? So, Kampala. With residential housing and plannings. And so, therefore, there is a lot that you can do here. But beyond that, nothing stops you possibly reviewing a situation in which possibly the Minister of Environment can go to a location slightly outside Kampala. Some of the other businesses spread. So the plan we had, sorry, I don't want to mix this. We had a plan for Kampala Entebbe conurbation and Kampala Jinja conurbation. Conurbation is about how you bring two communities, two nations, in this case, two towns together. So expand Kampala and put equivalent of the Entebbe Express Highway and a train system in between, meaning that the two cities, two towns, have a common life within a very easy reach.
So was your express highway in your plan as UPC free or was supposed to be paid for like the one we have?
Oh, thank you for asking that.
Yeah, the one we have.
One of the things I'm most resentful about, by the every time, and ask them, every time I pass through the Kampala Entebbe Express Highway,
and you pay for
once
it.
in a while, yes, I joke with those young, beautiful girls and boys. But many times I tell them off, but not in off, saying, it's a criminal thing. I feel really sad paying for it. You know, road tolls, these are policy and ideological issues. Road tolls are amongst the most extremes of capitalism. I think my friend Sarah Bireti one time said that if NRA got their way, at one stage, they might privatize air. It's criminal.
Why?
It's criminal because the little commerce I studied in high school tells you that one of the few things that governments do, among others, is provision for infrastructure and roads and railways and airlines. Okay? So, to find a choked Kampala Entebbe with a failure and you bring dubious Chinese businesses and then you rip off Ugandans double. This regime economically is called NRA Rip Off Uganda, Uganda Limited.
Say it again for me.
NRA Rip Off Uganda, Uganda Limited.
And you're very intentional, not even using NRM, you're using NRA.
NRA is basically what rules in this country, yes.
I get you.
Yeah. So Kampala needs to be decongested, but it also needs better planning. With better planning, with very little.
Yeah, but when you say that, I feel sad because we train, like, we have people who go to Makerere to study urban planning.
Urban planning and engineering.
What do they where have they been teaching that for quite some time?
One time I visited Alan Kajina of then URA. Fantastic lady. And as I was going to our offices and we were discussing, as I was walking out, I said, we had these engineers. But what are they? So part of the issue is the broken road here in Nigeria, I don't know. And you wonder who's in charge. But the next other time you see a group of people walking on the road, is a Chinese guy smoking cigarette, puffing fumes. I don't like cigarette. On a kofia like Museveni's, but slightly, different range. And a series of Africans. And they're working on drainage. After 60 years of independence, why should our basic engineering construction project in Kampala involve Chinese? Granted, it's even if Chinese money. Why should it be linked to that? In the 60s, late 60s, one of Milton Obote's scenes with these guys was that if you're working on a project, construction or housing project in Uganda, we reject the ideas that they will bring the director, top engineers, and Ugandans will only be pushers of wheelbarrows. intentional leadership. The Uganda I want is one in which Uganda is a sovereign nation, sovereign-led, with the mandate of the peoples on a specific agenda, which is the people's agenda, pro-people's agenda, one in which there is a charter with the citizens. And that charter is a guarantee in terms of their day-to-day provision from education, health, foods, water, electricity, all tested and all equipped and all reasonably regulated, but one in which we determine our destiny. And part of the determination of our destiny is that an opportunity that exists in gold should be a first Ugandan explored opportunity.
Okay. Thank you so much. We're going to keep it here, and I hope when we have you next time, you will talk about the election, you will talk about the, of course, the corruption and many other things. But for now, we want to say thank you for creating time to share with us a brief of the Uganda that you want to see. And we are anxiously waiting to hear more from the kind of Uganda that you want to see. Thank you for coming on us.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.